What's up, universe? Carlos Washington checking in again. I told you I'll be sharing with you these daily transmissions, and I'm back. Oh my god, the sun got me right now for some reason. Anyways, so check it out, man. Look where I'm at. I'm on break right now. See that? Don't mind the hologram behind me, you know. But enjoy the view. It's a bit windy, so hopefully it doesn't affect too much the audio, and if there's a form of camera shaking, it's the wind. But yeah, so with that, on with the transmission, right? Like I said, I'll be sharing with you daily transmissions. I don't want to make any promises, but I guarantee today to be here right now with you, to share the transmission with you. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna get some water. Whoa, see that? Bam. There we go. That's cool. All right. So, for today's transmission, we'll be referring to the book of Philippians. I think I said that right. Chapter 4, verse 8. And it reads as follows. Sigan pensando en todo lo que es bueno y digno de alabanza. Now, before I mentalize that scripture, I just want to share with you also that scripture, it's not just poetry, man. I mean, in the traditional sense, it might be, but, you know, we build in pro, so we gotta optimize ourselves in the best way possible. And if you take this as a form of, if you take scripture not as poetry but as a form of like mental training, you might learn something. Like I said, listen and pay attention. So Philippians chapter 4 verse 8. That to me, in a sense, hits home because of what I've been recently going through, right? And again, you know, I'm operating on real time, so like, this video is not pre-recorded, nor do I have pre-recorded videos. And that's what I mean by operating on real time. This is one take right now. So, how I'm mentalizing said scripture, I'm like looking through my archive in memory, right? And it makes me think about where I'm at versus where I was just at a year ago. And let me tell you, man, a year ago, I was in the mud, right? Figuratively, not like literally, you know, but figuratively, I was in the mud. One might say, I wasn't, a lot of instability, you know, and things like that. And really, it comes down to what you allow to live in your mind. Because look what's behind me. You see this? This is where my mind is at right now. I'm working, but my mind is free. I'm free to think about whatever, right? Now, you want to think good things, right? Don't get it twisted. Negative thoughts will come naturally. So you don't even have to think bad. You just don't think for a moment, get a bad thought. But as above, so below kind of thing, right? So what you think about, what you imagine, this is what I'm imagining at this current moment, is what you manifest, I guess, in a sense. You know, I used to operate out of I just learned this. My thought process was operating out of survival. Thinking, which most of us can relate, that we think paycheck by paycheck, which most of us still think like that, right? We think out of paycheck by paycheck, that's thinking out of survival, right? Now, it's easier said than done in a sense, because you still got to do the work. You still got to, like, if you want to change the way you think, you have to change the way you think intentionally. Like, you have to purposely think of, instead of thinking like, you want to think out of gratitude. Let's do that. Let's keep it simple. We're gonna think out of gratitude, right? Out of appreciation. So what I mean by that, like, the example I'm gonna give you is like, homeless people that are homeless. A lot of people that are homeless ask for money for whatever reason, $1, whatever. They're willing to accept anything. So out of survival, because you're like, well, money's tight and blah blah blah, you might not give this dude $1, which is, touche. But if you think in gratitude, right, you would say, hey man, here's $5. Not because you're thinking about your situation, but you're being grateful to be in the situation to even give this guy $5. Now, you might need those $5 yourself, which will prevent you from thinking in gratitude, right? Instead of thinking like, well, if $5, whatever, I'll make it up when I go to work tomorrow, when I get my next paycheck, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? I hope it does. And so what I'm trying to get at is that I just recently learned how I recently recalibrated my software, my thinking process. Granted, I went through, you can't really, like, yes, the software is easy. The software is in your brain, right? The hardware, right, is the body, the heart, whatever. Your brain is, like, your body cannot function without your brain. You might be alive, your heart might still beat, but if you a vegetable head, you still just laying there not doing shit. Feel me? So when you start to become intentional in the way you think about things, what I mean by intentional, well, why are you thinking about that? Well, because I'm thinking about this because of this, That's when you can start to flip the switch. That's what they call it. That makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. And me, myself, I never realized that, I was thinking like that. It took me a long time because I was comfortable, Granted, like, I've been searching for a while and looking, for better opportunity, but I was not able to be open to certain opportunities that were presented to me. You know, instead of taking so long, like, you know, I'm in my 30s, right? Maybe instead of waiting until my 30s to be here, I could have been here, you know, like my mid 20s, right? But it all has to do with what you allow to live in your brain and your mind. And it's difficult to recognize for the most part because a lot of it has to do with the environment that you're living in, man. You know, the environment at home specifically. But then what environment is your home at? And for me, that was the case. Like, my home environment has always been loving. You know, granted, I grew up in a single parent household, but the environment that my home was at was the biggest factor, in at least in my life. And it wasn't until I finally was able to, and again, what happened, how I got out of that environment was, I was looking to move, and then an opportunity presented itself. And because I had begun, by that time, my way of thinking had already begun to change, that I was able to take advantage of that opportunity when it presented itself. And now, you know, so it brings me here in a sense. But now my home environment is in the, my home is in a upgraded environment, right? Better environment, you know. You know what I'm talking about. Like, you know, certain areas where in the city, neighborhoods, there are better areas than others. So when you're living in not those better areas, you tend to think in not better ways. Because usually the biggest impact to your way of thought, your way of thinking, is your environment, whether that's at home or wherever that home is at. And it isn't until until you get out of that you can really see, like, wow, you know. Does that make sense? I mean, it sounds like it makes sense, right? I hope it makes sense. But yeah, you know, as you can see, real time, where my mind is at right now. Look where it's at. Oh. Yo, don't get me wrong, bro. I'm on the edge, dog. Don't get it twisted, but at least the scenery's nice, right? Listen, I'm on the edge for real. Look, check it out, dude. I am on the edge, bro. You see that? On the edge. Literally and figuratively. But yeah, you know, that's today's transmission. I hope that helps, man. Like I said, you know, something my father always tells me to this day. You're gonna learn one of these days. Maybe. And with that, I'm Carlos Washington. Let's build this together. Bless.